Democratic State Representative Donna Howard of Austin and Chairwoman of the Texas Women's Health Caucus. Thank you so much and welcome back to Eye on Politics.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. So I wanted to start with just the fact that the abortion issue is back at the U.S. Supreme Court, specifically mifepristone, the abortion medication. And Justice Samuel Alito restored full access to the distribution of the drug after telehealth visits. And I'm wondering, this comes after the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals blocked this rule from the FDA in 2023. So going forward, what are your biggest concerns?
Lots of concerns, actually, and I'm glad that the Supreme Court has at least stayed this for right now until May 11th, and then we'll see what happens then. So right now, just to make sure the audience knows, right now, you can still access this medication without an in-person visit. You can still access it with telehealth. But let me back up a second here and talk about what the problems are. Again, this is politicians, legislators trying to practice medicine without a license and not looking at the, I hope, were unintended consequences of what got put in place. The fact is that mifepristone is not only the most effective medication used for abortion, it is also used for miscarriage management, which affects many women in our state who have pregnancy losses in the first trimester. And this is a drug of choice used in that management to help them be able to pass the tissue without having to go into an office for a surgical procedure. So really, it's going to affect a lot of people beyond what I think was intended by politicians.
And obviously, when you and I are talking right now, we don't know what Justice Alito or the other members of the court are going to do. But talk to me a little bit about what the potential impact could be here in Texas as it relates to state law.
Well, right now, of course, abortion is prohibited in Texas, and there is also a law in the books that prohibits the mailing and distribution of medication for abortion here in Texas. That being said, Texans are able to link up telehealth with physicians and providers in other states that have shield laws and are still receiving these medications. And in fact, it's the leading way that people access abortion right now. So what really changes here is primarily for those who are seeking this medication, mifepristone, for other reasons other than abortion, primarily miscarriage management. The fact is that we have a huge rural population in our state. Over half of our counties are maternal health care deserts. People don't have ready access to the providers they need. It has been determined that telehealth is safe and effective. It allows people to manage their miscarriages in a lot less time, fewer days than up to weeks if you did not have this medication. You may not have to even have a D&C, which is also helpful to many. So really, we're talking about an impact on a huge number of Texas women who more than likely wanted their pregnancies and ended up having a miscarriage. But because of where they live, do not have access to being able to go to an in-person provider and have been relying on telehealth to safely and effectively manage their miscarriages with much fewer complications, much fewer symptoms, and highly effective and safe.
And the reason that women have been able to use telehealth to get mifepristone is because of the FDA's 2023 rule.
Yes.
And so now if the Supreme Court decides to send it back to, or let the Fifth Circuit Court ruling stand for now, which would block this, that would have a huge impact.
Absolutely. And The fact is that mifepristone has been available as an effective FDA-approved medication for a quarter of a century and has had in multiple reviews, scientific reviews. The fact that we had COVID drew a lot of attention to the fact that you could access this safely and effectively by telehealth. And the FDA, as you point out, in 2023, changed the requirements so that you did not have to have an in-person visit because the substantial evidence was there and was clear that this is a safe and effective way to deliver this medication. So going back on what science has told us, what physicians have told us to prevent the use of a medication that can help people not only with seeking abortion, but also with the management of miscarriages is just an egregious insult to the health of Texas women.
And so we were talking before, and you said that right now, if you go to a pharmacist here in Texas, they ask what specifically the use of mifepristone is going to be for, right?
I don't know if every single one of them asks, but I will tell you that I've heard multiple accounts of women who have gotten this medication prescribed because they needed it for a miscarriage or some other purpose. And they have gone to the pharmacist who then required them to wait while they called the physician to make sure the prescribing physician assured them that this was not for abortion, which is, I think, just kind of beyond the pale and what you would expect when you have a prescription from your physician and you go to the pharmacist, you get it filled.
So let's say the Supreme Court lets the Fifth Circuit's ruling stand, and what would be allowed in Texas?
You know, the real change would really still just be that you couldn't access this medication without going to see a doctor. And that will not affect those seeking abortion because that's already prohibited. So in essence, what it will do is it will just bring in more people who will be affected by the Fifth Circuit's ruling beyond those seeking abortion. And you know, I think right now and I'm not a lawyer, but there's a lot of legal litigation going on out there and being proposed. So I don't know exactly where it would all go, but the bottom line is abortion is illegal in Texas. Mailing and distributing medication abortion in Texas is also illegal. It is not illegal for a woman to receive and take the medication. That will still stand. But in order to access the medication, if the Fifth Circuit's ruling is upheld, then it would have to be an in-person visit, which would be absolutely prohibitive for those seeking abortion in our state, and would be a huge burden for those who are seeking miscarriage management care, especially if they are in a medically underserved area, which, as I said, over half of our state is.
And then last session, House Bill 7 passed, and that allowed doctors and companies who distribute the drug to be sued.
Yes.
So what impact has that had additionally, do you feel, on this whole issue?
Well, quite frankly, I think that it has not had as huge an impact as those that were proposing that would like to have seen, because of the shield laws that were created in the states that do distribute the medications. So the Attorney General, Paxton, has sued other states and doctors for distributing the medication. But at this point in time, because of the shield laws, that hasn't really progressed. So, you know, I don't think it's had as profound an effect as they would have liked to have seen. The fact is that those states that do support women's access to making their own choice with their doctors about terminating a pregnancy have created these shield laws that actually have been protecting them.
And so as, you know, we wait to see what the Supreme Court does, is there anything that you and others are doing in preparation?
You know, just trying to stay on top of this is a bit of a challenge because of the frequent changes that are occurring. And I think that's actually part of the purpose here. Uh, this chaos, this confusion, that's affecting the women who are seeking these services. They don't know what to expect. They don't know what's legal and not legal. It creates a lot of fear and difficulty in accessing what they legally have a right to access. So I think that there's an intentionality there in making this a continually confusing process, and actually trying to deny Texas women access to healthcare that is absolutely legal and medically proven to be acceptable and healthy in other states. And to prevent us from leaving this state or from receiving something from another state where it is legal is just kind of, I mean, it's hard for me to even get my mind around how legislators believe that they should be able to confine women to this state and not allow them access to legal health care available in other parts of the state, of this country.
As you know, we've got midterm elections coming up in November. Do you see this issue having any political impact?
You know, I think some people believe that the abortion issue is behind us and that that's not something that people are paying attention to. But quite frankly, what happened in the last session with the so-called Life of the Mother Act, which I worked on and helped with in a bipartisan fashion to ensure that doctors were able to terminate pregnancies without fear of violating the law. We were having, as you probably know, women in Texas died because they were coming into the hospital setting and having bleeding, losing their pregnancies, but there was still a fetal heartbeat or some other thing going on that did not comport with what the law said. And because of the severe penalties, doctors did not actually terminate pregnancies in the standard way they would have done before the law. We changed that in terms of trying to clear up some of the vagueness. It was not what pro-life wanted. It was not what pro-choice wanted, but hopefully we're saving Texas women's lives with the Life of the Mother Act. I see the same kind of thing could happen here. That happened because people, including Republicans, realized that we had gone too far and we were jeopardizing the life and health of Texas moms. In this case, what we're seeing today, I think it's very similar in that we are depriving access to miscarriage management care for Texas women. And at least 10%, some say up to 25% of pregnancies end in miscarriage. This is going to affect a huge number of women and families. And so I think you will see some who will say, look, you're going too far again. And it could impact how some turn out at the polls.
You spoke about the other bill that the legislature passed last year. And I'm wondering, have you seen any impact of that? Have you heard of women, having severe medical problems and hospitals not knowing what to do? Or do you think that's been cleared up?
I think to a large extent it's been cleared up, but we are looking to get some definitive data to support that. Part of the legislation required continuing legal education for the lawyers in the hospitals who oftentimes advise in these cases, and continuing medical education for physicians who would be in a position to do an abortion, such as obviously gynecologists, obstetrician gynecologists, family practitioners, emergency room physicians. Those types of physicians are now being required to take this continuing medical education, which defines very explicitly when you can and cannot intervene. So hopefully we are addressing it in a way that is making a difference and waiting to get some data on that.
All right, we will leave it there.
Okay.
Democratic State Representative Donna Howard of Austin and Chairwoman of the Texas Women's Health Caucus. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.